not wanting to trouble you, but already doing that, please, I would like to call to the stage a panel about e-cigarettes, vape in the media. This is a panel that last year we addressed this topic, and we are addressing it again because this is having this really really a boom, a frightening boom in Brazil. So we brought specialists that were already at public hearings at the Senate, showing that releasing this in Brazil can be a catastrophe for young people. So let's call to the stage to moderate this panel Dr. Roberto Lacerri, a lawyer and businessman with a PhD on management and national coordinator of the movements Brazil Without Drugs and Brazil Without Gambling. So Roberto, in reality, I will give you the microphone so that you will call the participants and manage and moderate, okay? So if you can end the panel by 12:30, that would be great. Okay, I won't promise I'll do that, but I'll try. Okay, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure, it's a joy to be here on the ninth edition of the Freemind Congress. I was invited last year, but unfortunately I could not come. But this year I could not refuse because it's a topic that I understand as extremely important. And this in Congress, I always say that this Congress is a service to community. It's a rendering service to community because when you discuss such important topics and sensitivity to our society, I understand it's a service that it's very important, not just for you that are here, but those who are on the internet. So to talk about e-cigarettes, vapes, that has flooded our society. I think it's extremely important. I'd like to thank Paulo for the invitation once more, Paulo. Also thank Gisele, who has helped us a lot. I understand that it would be not fair not to cite her name. I'm a lawyer. As Paulo said, I'm also a businessman. I work today as a legal coordinator of Eduardo Girão, of the Senator Eduardo Girão, who is an activist for the causes of life, against abortion, drugs, gambling, the proliferation of fire weapons. So I had the opportunity of getting to know excellent people, excellent professionals in all senses, among whom the ones that are going to be here with us to discuss in this panel. So please, Dr. Stella Martins. She's a researcher, a scientist, and today is a researcher at Dante Pazanese Institute.
Dr. Paulo César Correia, he's an deputy professor, adjunct professor at the Department of Pediatric Clinic and Adults in the course of the medicine course of the University of Ouro Preto and other qualifications. And our dear Dr. Guilherme will come back on stage now. He's the stage prosecutor. I think he went to the restroom, so we'll wait for him. Wonderful. It's totally understandable. I was very happy when I got here. Outside and I saw the presence of many young people. And when they're not young people, they are surely activists regarding this theme, especially in the theme of addiction and the theme that involves prevention, because the issue of drugs is through fighting, but fighting big drug dealers. But we can only decapitalize them if we work with prevention, working with prevention, avoiding the first drag, the first moment of contact with the drug, automatically you avoid purchase. So when you avoid the purchase, automatically you avoid the offer from the supply from happening. So the issue of prevention, to my understanding, is extremely important. So when I see young people here and those who are not young, they are activists, and those who are not activists nor young, they are fathers and mothers, they are parents. We're going to talk about this theme of e-cigarettes, which have been affecting mostly our children and adolescents. I don't know if you know, but a recent study was issued that saying that the prevalence of the consumption of e-cigarettes is 2% among young people, and then as of afterward drops to 8.5. So the industry's goal is to create future consumers. So when I see people, young people, activists and fathers here, I know that that's the audience we want to talk to. So more than ever, I thank you all. Let's start. I'd like to tell you how we divided our panel in a talk we had. We're going so if 50, each speaker will talk for 15 minutes. Then I'm going to talk about 10 minutes about the reality of what has been going on in the National Congress. So because there are two bills pending in the Congress. So one regards the use of export, import, and advertising of e-cigarettes. And then we're going to, I'll ask 2 or 3 questions for each speaker, and then we are going to open for questions. So Paulo, please, Martelli, please allow me to do that because I believe it's extremely important to have this interaction with you. Of course, we have a maximum time for questions and a maximum time for answers. I believe that's extremely important because this feedback from you is extremely important because conveying the message is important. If you don't convey the message, automatically no effort is worth on our part. So 2 hours is a good time to have this discussion. And without further ado, please, Dr. Stella. You as a woman, you come first. You have priority. You have the floor. Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. I'd like to thank Paulo for the invitation, Giselle, who gives all her support to us, and apologize because I've been invited various times, and this is the first time I could do that due to my schedule. It's a pleasure to be here with my dear friends such as Paulo, Dr. Guilherme, and Roberto. So we will today, please, the clicker. So we're going to talk today. We're going to talk about the new forms of nicotine. So we know the damage traditional cigarettes has done to the world population, as much so as it's considered the most avoidable cause of death. Um, so we'll see that the industry has been intensifying and developing other forms of nicotine, which are very dangerous. So there's no conflict of interest, nor with the pharmaceutical industry, much less with the tobacco industry. In the 60s, 70s, if today is a little bit more difficult to find that, but when I started to work with nicotine addiction, sometimes I talk to a guy 70 years old. Oh, those cigarettes I smoked when I was a teenager because we smoked a lot, 10 cigarettes and didn't feel pleasure. And what does the nicotine does to deliver nicotine fast and more intensely? In the 60s, they developed free-base nicotine, which is getting the tobacco leaf, extract nicotine from it, and the Marlboro producer, which is Philip Morris, it added ammonia to that nicotine extract. There we have the free base nicotine. When Marlboro arrived in the market in the 60s, it was a hit because people smoked and felt a lot of pleasure. Of course, as a drug, it has a very quick impact on a person's brain and releases dopamine, and the tendency of the human being is to want to repeat that experience. So then addiction begins very quickly. But that nicotine, it that I'm sorry, that freebase nicotine, it delivered nicotine much fast to the brain, but it had an issue, which was despite having an easy absorption by by uh, by the person, it's left something. They people didn't feel a good thing in their throat, so then they added other elements, other chemicals to there. So we have even flavored cigarettes. That's when the additive issue started, but that today is being discussed in the Supreme Court, and let's see how the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court says about it. Over 50 years later, because it was comfortable for the industry, because everybody was consuming free-base nicotine, everybody was addicted. I'm earning a lot of money, but these people began to get sick and die. Others started to drop cigarettes, asking for treatment and be free from nicotine addiction, and were no longer clients of that industry. The industry began to lose money, and what did it do? It put in the market a much more powerful nicotine. Then when you have here nicotine salt, which is the free-base nicotine to which they add benzoic acid. That's when we have nic salt, which is present in e-cigarettes, last generation, fourth generation e-cigarettes. The first to third generations, there were no nic salt, and they are barely sold in the market because they don't give much pleasure due to that rough feeling in the throat. And the nic salt, it's so powerful that you cannot use it in a third generation e-cigarette. The third generation is that one that makes that vapor, which is wrong, right? So very intense, that smoke, very intense, dense smoke. That's the third generation e-cigarette. Since it produces this smoke very intensely, if you put to a powerful nicotine there, they won't be able to use it in the third generation. So for that fourth generation, which produces a very discrete smoke, and sometimes you don't even see it in the closed environment, there they use nic salt. And what's the issue of nic salt? They are less rough on the throat, they have easier absorption by the lungs, and as I said back in 2015, it's a brand and it's introduced in the market by Juul, which is a very successful brand in the US. 2 years later, a more powerful nicotine was created. I'm sorry, I've anticipated here. So e-cigarettes, first generation e-cigarettes, they had at most 2 milligrams per milliliters of nicotine. For you have an idea, our regular cigarettes cannot even have 1 milligram per cigarette. So already there we had a high concentration of nicotine with 2 milligrams. I'm sorry, I'm having issues with this. But Juul, the e-cigarette Juul, it arrived in the market with 59 milligrams per milliliter, and the menthol one up to 79 milligrams of nicotine. That's why Juul, it was a hit, mainly among teenagers, because it delivers nicotine very fast way and gave immediate pleasure. However, today we know that despite that nicotine being a powerful nicotine, we have e-cigarettes that do not have only benzoic acid. There are 5 acids there, so that they can be associated to the free-base nicotine. And then we ask ourselves, so one acid wasn't enough? Juul hasn't it sold a lot and made many teenagers addicted? Why do they need four more acids to install that dependence, that addiction, in a faster way, to have it absorbed easier by the lungs and have a more impact on the brain? Menthol, which is a frequently used additive, it's not only a flavor, an aroma, scent, uh, uh, for you to feel less rough on one's throat. It acts on our brain, which are when they have the impact of the nicotine, they release a substance that is dopamine. So it has also this role of acting in all our dopaminergic receptors and intensify the release of dopamine. So installing addiction is much greater. So as I said in the previous slide, we have other all of these acids: benzoic, lactic, salicylical, and etc. And this potentiates addiction. And there are studies that say that inhaling these acids, they are unknown, but they already know that's a significant increase of epithelial cells, suggesting that you have lesions in their nostrils. So this may be one of the explanations. So the fourth generation e-cigarettes have reduced several markers that suppress general immunity, which indicate a negative impact when you compare it to a third e-cigarette or a traditional e-cigarette. So we ask ourselves, who is more damaging, traditional or e-cigarettes? None of them are good for you. But we know that the fourth generation e-cigarettes, they potentiate the harm to health, and more precociously. So one parenthesis, we have friends that are colleagues that are medicines. Please publish the cases, because since I worked with that, Paulo also works with that. We always hear colleagues texting us, meeting us. There are many cases that I know of, people who are aged 24 years old with no other diseases, no high cholesterol, etc. Suddenly they appear in the ER with a massive heart attack. What's the risk factor? E-cigarettes. I have a colleague, and I told her, I'm not seeing very well. Another person went to the optician. The guy with 25 years old was having an ischemia. He obstructed his cerebral artery that was responsible for his sight. So he lost 1/4 of his sight at 23 years of age. He had a stroke. So cases that we see very often on the media regarding pulmonary harm, lesions, pulmonary injuries, that's not the only consequence. We're having other issues that are at early ages. So when you see people that have smoked for 40 years, and is it good for public health? They have less problems than these young people smoking e-cigarettes. So if I start using e-cigarettes with 15 years old, when I'm 20 years old, I have my lungs will be like the lung of an elderly person who smoked his entire life. So now Now we spent a half a century without a new form of nicotine, and now every 2 years there are new forms of nicotine and more powerful than before. So synthetic nicotine, it does not need nicotine extracted from tobacco leaf, which is a very complex issue among big transnational tobacco companies. So, because they have issues with the person who plants that, they it's intoxication with that. They cannot sell with the price he wanted. So I receive this number of. I'll plant this number of crops, then I will receive that, and the person arrives to say the qualification of the tobacco leaf, and they say it's not, it's a low quality leaf, and that and it's bad for rural workers. So the synthetic nicotine, it will remove that labor issue the industry had with farmers who planted tobacco leaves. So because it's entirely made in labs. So we have AS nicotine. And then the one that's produced in lab synthetically, which does not need tobacco leaf, has S nicotine, which you already know that causes the installation of addiction in nicotine. And there's another form that is R nicotine. What is that? We don't know. What harm will they make to the brain, to cause to the brain and to the body of the user? We don't know. Associating R and S nicotines, which damage, which harm will it cause? We don't know. So Anvisa, I always praise Anvisa because the agency that regulates that does a very strict regulation to not allow the tobacco industry to do more things. So our legislation, according to our legislation, any product that has nicotine, they don't allow it. So synthetic nicotine cannot be traded in Brazil according to our law. So and they are sold the following way: without tobacco leaf, quality equivalent to the pharmaceutical nicotine. So when you see something that's equivalent to what's produced as a medicine, what the message is conveyed? Oh, it's a medicine. It's a medication. If it's being traded, it's safe. There's no nicotine, no tobacco. It's safer. So it's an evil thing. The industry, the tobacco industry does when it trades, commercializes this product this way.
So it is used in more 40 e-cigarette brands throughout the world, and it entered the market to countervene this gap in American law. So regarding FDA, when you produce a product, especially deriving from tobacco, it says, okay, I'll give you the permit to trade for 2 years, and during this 2 years, you have to prove to me through scientific studies that the person got better with the use of a product, did not get addicted, children did not get addicted. So it will release the sales for 2 years. If in 2 years it is proved that it's unsafe, it will be removed from the market. If it proves that it's a safe product that does not addict young people, then you can still commercialize. It's very different from how we understand it. So nicotine, synthetic nicotine, gets into the American market with a gap in the FDA rule. They did not have in its rule that they could regulate nicotine that did not come from tobacco. So the producers of e-cigarettes that came from tobacco leaves that did not revalidate commercialization because the FDF saw that adolescents were using e-cigarettes and said, I'm not renewing right to sell, they started producing e-cigarettes with synthetic nicotine that was not regulated by the FDA. So it was a way to circumvent the legislation to continue selling the product. Then in 2021, so the story I'm telling you guys started in 2012 with Nick Salts. It's one issue after the other in a very short period. It reaches the market through FIBAR with synthetic nicotine, which whose sales just peak by circumventing American law. And then in March 2022, FDA changes its law, its rule. It starts regulating everything that derives from or that has nicotine of any source. So keep this in mind, of any source. It doesn't have to be from tobacco leaves. And then it comes into force 2 months later. This adaptation, this new, I can place my product, and the FDA will decide if it will authorize or not its selling. 2024, last year, another nicotine that is created, that methamphetamine. It is called 2023, sorry. It also created to circumvent the FDA law, but there's a conflict here, a polemic issue here, because FDA releases a law that it can regulate or not nicotine deriving or not from tobacco, and the producer of this new product says that it's not under the umbrella of the inspection of FDA. It reaches the market. It reaches the market with this manufacturer, Spreebar. This Spreebar, this nicotine, is a structure analog to synthetic nicotine. We don't know its biological and toxicological effects. This is a study that was carried out by George T, and he concludes that 1 milligram per ml of methamphetamine is as satisfactory as 3 milligram per ml of nicotine. So methamphetamine is 3 times more powerful than the nicotine that we find in traditional cigarettes. I'm finishing, okay? I'm finishing. And advertising of methamphetamine, which is a bit small for you to read, well, it's an experience that is broadly encouraged. Products of Spreebar with methamphetamine, they produce this great sensation. They repeat twice that it's only for consumers, for adult consumers, that Spreebar provides great flavor and taste and a sensational experience, highly pleasant experience. And it's a good taste. Do you think a 60-year-old wants to try methamphetamine with tutti frutti to stop smoking? Of course not. This is for children. It's for adolescents, young adults. And they say that they cannot be regulated by the FDA. It's a way of opposing to FDA's new rule. And this is one of the advertisings they had. Methamphetamine, no nicotine. Wow, no nicotine. We think, well, okay, that's what I'm going to buy. There's no nicotine. I know the nicotine is highly addictive, so I'm going to buy this one that has no nicotine because this one is safe. It's a way of you using advertising to allure new people to your products. And there's a study that was carried out by the producer Levy, because e-cigarette was with liquid nicotine. There's this large producer of liquid nicotine conducted a survey saying that methamphetamine increases a specific lung cells there are and that harm the lungs, but has lighter effects on proteins related to lung cancer. What I understand is that I will not have lung cancer. Oh, I won't have lung cancer, so I'm going to choose this form of smoking. So To conclude, if Brazil today increased the amount, the value of the tax that is paid by tax-derived products, in 10 years we would be able to reduce 140 by 145,000 the deaths related to tobacco, and today this costs the public coffers 150 billion reais, whether through direct or indirect costs. Indirect is when a person had to stop working to take care of a person that is ill because of a tobacco-related disease. This amount, and we have to make it clear that this amount does not include deaths and early deaths that we see, early diseases and deaths of young people we see every day in the media that are getting sick or dying because of the consumption of e-cigarette. What are the costs of this for Brazil? There's a bill in the Senate that says that if we release e-cigarettes in terms of production, manufacturing, sales, and everything, we will gain 7 billion. This count is not possible. 7 billion net, close to, compared to 153 billion that I have with traditional cigarettes, without counting the damages caused by e-cigarettes. Our national health system and our supplemental health system will not be able to deal with all of this. It doesn't matter if it's in England, Brazil, the United States. Who gains with this new type of product? Is it public health? Is it the tobacco industry? I am sure of my answer. Thank you for your attention. So it's interesting, the situation is interesting, because when I say that this Congress is a Congress that provides great service to society, I'm not exaggerating. I've been studying this much less than the specialists for around 10 years. And this is a recent reality in Brazil, e-cigarettes. So we don't really have studies on e-cigarettes. But when we pay attention at this great class that Dr. Stella gave us, we see how much the industry of the nicotine and tobacco industry was born with a goal of having profits. But profits, and I want to demonize profit. The profit of this type of industry is impacting the health of people. That's brutal. And Dr. Sala placed the number that is real. So 7.2 billion is the study that was made to collect tax on e-cigarettes, which is about 2.5% is the average of consumption in Brazil. If you add it to traditional cigarette, it's around 20 to 22 billion on tax on traditional cigarette and a future tax collection on e-cigarettes. But even we make this a calculation, when we compare it to 153 B of social costs, direct and indirect social costs, especially regarding public health, this calculation does not match, does not add up. And in that the National Congress, at the end of the presentation, I'm going to tell you a bit about what's happening on the National Congress. If you vote for the regulation of e-cigarette, it's not only an attack to the society because of public health, Dr. Paulo and Dr. Guilherme. It will also be an attack to the public coffers. It will be very irresponsible in terms of tax, because you will have 130 B in deficits in a country where you are always running after money, where they're cutting funds for education, health, and if you vote for a project like this, a bill like this, you're basically really damaging, harming the public coffers of the country. And it's going to be a chemical weapon targeted against the youth and against our public coffers. Dr. Paulo, the floor is yours. Yes, your notes, your observations, Dr. Roberto, are very pertinent. Good morning, everyone. If you could put my first slide on. The idea here. So the idea here is vape in the media. So demystify the vape. I'm deconstructing the vape here, and I'm going to show you what is the prevailing speech of the media and of the industry, sorry, to people associated. And we're going to deconstruct this together. Let's see what slide is going to show now. So these are my, please go back. So you know my conflicts of interests already. I mentioned it yesterday. Here, what Roberto said. This, you might remember, she was a candidate for the presidency of the Republic. She posted on her Instagram. So Senator Soraya Tronic, she's the author of Bill 5008 with lobbyists of him more, an ex-public senator being paid by this industry, and the other one is a lobbyist that is very well known. So she is gathered with these two hearings. She writes the name of the lobbyist and in Japan at a tobacco industry visit. Here we have a video. It's not possible to read the slides. It's not possible to read the video. So the interpreter cannot interpret.
Então a indústria está modelando.
So the industry is designing this all. The great impact of policies on smoke-free environments is to denormalize tobacco usage. So what they're showing here is that it's not normal for you to see tobacco use everywhere. Now I'm going to talk about all these myths. These myths are what the industry talks about and defends. There's already a bill. There's already a resolution of Anvisa, and it's very clear e-cigarettes are prohibited in Brazil in all its dimensions. So you cannot release it. It's not a water vapor. It's harmless, creating a false distinction between smoking and vaporizing. It's cool, it's technical. Remember all those things that the brand Hollywood made in its advertising in the past, and things that Englishmen say, and really irritates me. It's 95% less dangerous. The undue appropriation of reduction in harm. So reduction in harm is not what the industry is saying. So first of all, the first myth that we have to destroy is we have important epidemiological gaps. Vigitel and Covitel. In Vigitel, we have both in sequence. There is then an stabilization for people plus 18, and you can see there's a stabilization and even a certain trend to reduction, tend to reduction. So no, Dr. Saraya, the consumption is not disseminated in Brazil. So this is done and showed as something harmless. As you can see, the girl producing vapor and fires through her nostrils as a dragon. Other tricks done. So the adolescents will bin byproducts that have greater vegetal that produce more smoke. If you're curious, you can get into YouTube and see it's cloud chasers. People keep seeing how to do that, and oh, do it like this. This is a tip. Use this hint with so you can provide greater smoke and do your little dragon. This is a film. We're in Myth 2, which is, oh, it's just a water vapor. Johnny Depp is in a train going to Venice, and he finds Angelina Jolie, and she gets into the train and wants to sit next to him. And he says, no, be okay, everything's okay. It's not a real cigarette. It's electronic. It gives them same amount of nicotine, but the smoke is just a water vapor, so I can violate the smoke-free environment and reformulate tobacco use. Here you can see an advertisement of a cigarette globe, and it says that it only have 5 ingredients. So it's the story that I mentioned, few substances. You can see at the end of the blue cigarette pack, it has its content: distilled water, nicotine, vegetable glycerines, natural and artificial flavors, and citric acid. So 6 items, they don't know how to count, and flavor, natural and artificial flavors are in plural. So joke aside, it's you have to be very innocent to think that, because these chemicals are then heated up and they react among one another and produce other substances. But the industry wants to maintain people in pre-contemplation. They show products that are safe. So why will I stop smoking, right, Marcelo? So they keep people in pre-contemplation, and it's worrying because they allure people that never even smoked traditional cigarettes being able to have even more people smoke it. It's pure business. Casting Press study that is very interesting. It's an exploratory study. The great problem in literature at the beginning in this topic is that scientists try to identify in e-cigarettes the same substances of traditional cigarette. Well, the production of the vapor, they call it vapor to say that it's vapor of water. So everyone that is here, hashtag let's agree that vapor, it's an industry language, a fake industry language. It's aerosol full of heavy metals and toxic substances. They used spectrometry of mass and other types of science. The science is good. I can assure that I read the study, and it's an excellent study. So they saw this cloud of substances that were nearly 2,000 chemical substances. If there's hydrocarbonate, this means that there's a fuel. So there is fuel at lower temperatures, but the harmful substances are there. It's going to become into benzene, which is a cancer substance. And so there are all other substances that in the e-cigarette that can cause cancer to human beings.
So we don't know. Now look at caffeine. We don't know what inhaled caffeine causes. So everything is. This is hard to read, but there are 3 industrial products: a pesticide, and people are inhaling all of that together with the cigarettes. So there are no. These ingredients. The ingredients are many, and this is a crazy thing. They made these stickers. This was disseminated in various products, especially in the U.S. And you could make keychains, T-shirts, stickers. Eu não estou fumando. Eu estou usando vape. So it's crazy to create that thing with it. That thing that say that I'm not smoking or vaping. So this cigarette is safe. So because you don't have cough, smoke without the side effects. So back in the 30s, 40s, it's the same thing again when you think about those decades. So here, one more video, please. Here are series that expose young people to these electronic cigarette images.
Menor de idade.
An underage person smoking.
Well.
That's the industry doing its regular show. So I put this slide here and talking about these brothers who are bad, and they are also. I'm making an analogy with the cigarette industry. So here's the Juul cigarette doing a similar compilation. Look, using the same strategies they used in the 20th century. The Chester filter cigarettes and this one, Rise from the Ashes, and it's amazing. They're so similar. Even the format of their faces are similar. It's amazing. So associating with women, femininity, dependence, it's the same language. They're using the same language. So a young couple having fun. These two are so much similar. Look at those metal dresses, more sexy dresses. It's amazing how similar they are. Using fruit, relating that to health somehow, and this thing of technology can handle anything. That was the same thing with cigarette filters 50 years ago, and now there's no lung cancer, and it's a lie, as you know very well. This is my favorite myth. It has to do with England. It has 95, they say that's 95% less dangerous. And in our discussion, I will tell you how this emerged, and it has to do with the health ministry of England. And here, this myth of this 95% safer was destroyed by this paper that was published. Stanton Glantz was the guy who received those boxes with the documents, secret documents. So this paper is wonderful. I'm a science nerd and I love these things. So what happens with science? To be able to say that a product is harmful to health, I need a time with that product being used for to me get the outcomes. For each outcome, there is a certain time period. So to our breathing outcomes, we need more time. So we can see many things now in young people, many outcomes, bad outcomes in young people. So what do? This is a systematic review with meta-analysis. They give this to a statistic guy, and he gets all the patients, and he does a math for all the studies. So they're trying to see if there's a difference in terms of risk between e-cigarettes and regular cigarettes. So the number divided by itself results in 1. So this diamond thing cannot be over 1, because when I divide a number by itself, I obtain 1. If the diamond passes by 1, what does it mean? That the risk, cardiovascular risk, heart attack, stroke, etc., is equal among the same products. So there's no difference. So they're not safer. In addition, there's another data I will call attention to. This cigarette like that is calling the attention. It's the risk of erectile dysfunction. So the risk is 2.13 times higher. So so e-cigarettes are more harmful to our veins. So that causes stroke, heart attack, and erectile dysfunction. Stella has already called your attention of that math, and I didn't put here because I thought I wouldn't have time, but it's worth mentioning. There's a large study in the U.S. It's called EONIS. They got the people and got the people who continued smoking and those who decided to, who fall with the strategy and said, I'm going to go to the e-cigarette. So it's vapor. It's safer. It's only a smoke, vapor. The ones that continue to smoke traditional cigarettes, the average age average of who have stroke, it's 6 years of age. Those group who went to the e-cigarettes, it's 48 years of age, so 11 years earlier. So can you imagine, Dr. Guilherme, me having a stroke at 48 years old? Think about the impact, about incapability and loss of productivity. Another thing, the second disease that causes more incapacity and it's more costly is DPOC, which is it's a chronic lung disease. The person becomes an invalid. We tend to think, well, a stroke leads to incapability, but this disease, this lung disease, is almost like the stroke in terms of incapacity. They leave the person incapable of doing many things. So it's a lot, you know. Well, here is something else that annoys me very much, is this thing that's saying that I stopped smoking if you're nicotine dependent, and they stopped smoking because they went to vape. It's not because you traded your cigarette for flavored strawberry vape, you're going to stop smoking. That's a lie. So only to call your attention, it's a paper I published because the industry does that. It pays scientists, people who have no honor, to say that there is controversy. So the title of the article is, There's No Controversy. E-cigarettes are not treatment to stop using nicotine and tobacco. They cause all of these diseases. They maintain the person in the inhaling system. So we must think that the person who smokes is using drugs, is using heavy drugs, and renormalizes smoking, which is the final goal of the industry. Conclusions: the smoke from regular cigarettes and the vapor, they contain dangerous chemical substances that cause cancer, heavy metals, and etc. The term vapor cannot be used by the industry to lie to users. So the goal of the aerosol is to make people addictive through the use of menthol and other substances. So to offer nicotine, many other substances are delivered, and they are a product for consumption and not to treat smoking. So a quick walkthrough. So association with the LGBTQAI plus people with associating with the tobacco and smoking industry. These are the publicities, the advertisings. At the end of last year, we expected Anvisa to make a resolution. So what do the industry do? They pay vehicles such as Valor, Poder 360, media outlets. So they pay different media outlets to make sponsored content, to create sponsored content. These contents are paid. And we have the impression that they are journalism. So you have the impression that that journalist has really assessed that information, but it's not true. So take a look at those sponsored content from 2021 to 2023, 37. And 85% of this content came out in the second semester of 2023, precisely due to the, it was expected that Anvisa resolution, Anvisa issued an opinion about it. So these are this sponsored content and printed, in the printed media. This is what they use. So seminar, e-cigarettes, so hot site in the global newspaper. Another one. Regulation of e-cigarettes may bring not only an alternative to reduce rates for smokers, but also a scenario with defined rules for surveillance, communication, in addition to inhibiting the increasing market in Brazil. So let's debate regulation. So take a picture of that. This is the one. Oh, it's the same thing that the industry says. So this person seems she is like a prostitute that sells himself to write this type of content. So these are the speakers. Me and Stella are tired of seeing Dr. Roberto in the Congress. This lady here was director of Anvisa. So she introduces herself as a pharmacist and director of Anvisa, but she has been, for years and years, she's been paid to British American Tobacco. Souza Cruz is the Souza Cruz, British American Tobacco. So she's paid to defend the interests of the tobacco industry. And here, I read and agree. I'm aware that my data contained in this registration can be used by global publishers and its companies that sponsors this event for relationship actions and offerings of products and services. And as you know, this is forbidden by law. So another example, vapes and warmed they are worn for people who are over 18. So it's the same Discord, a disclaimer. I'm almost done. Yesterday was Halloween, so that's what this is the new campaign we did in our association. This is the vape of nightmare, and there's more. The vape massacre and mortal vapes. And here's the what concert of Xuxa is this. Thank you very much. It's very good when we are present in a space and we hear people who know about the theme. And it's also, they take also to a playful side and a pseudo-comical side, because if it were a tragedy, it would be funny, but it's indeed a tragedy. And both Stella and Dr. Stella and Paulo talked about the substances that are contained inside e-cigarettes. So it's something that's brutal, because they put many substances, but when they interact, they potentiate each other's power. Many of them, many of them cause cancer, and more than the liquid, the product itself releases extremely heavy metal, iron, aluminum. So imagine you depositing all of that in your lungs, in your blood. So, and we see that the tobacco industry strategy is exactly similar when the conventional cigarette was created. And now also make a relationship with the marijuana industry, because the tobacco industry has been trying to renew itself. I don't know if you have seen 2 factories in Philip Morris. They closed in Germany, so they are losing market. In Brazil, we reached 35% of the prevalence of consumption, and now it's 9-10% only of cigarettes consumption in Brazil. But it must survive somehow. So they they see in the e-cigarettes this evil opportunity, cheating our young people and our children, because they are also having access, and seeking that in the marijuana market, saying that it's not harmful, talking about medicinal marijuana, or talking about damage reduction in the issue of e-cigarettes. So it's an evil strategy that this industry uses, and we must fight that and prevent that. And the participation of the people is extremely important. Dr. Paulo, you said an important thing. While in the public hearings in the Senate that address Thoratonique's bill, they take specialists that are qualified experts. Those who talk in favor of the industry is the industry itself. They can't even get one person from the medical universe, from the medical world, to defend them. So the industry defends themselves. So it lessens the importance of their participation, whereas our participation in all societies, they're always related to medicine and to science. Medicine and science will never vote in favor of e-cigarettes, so we cannot go against science. I trust science. If science says that cigarette is harmful, we must consider that very strongly, inside and outside the National Congress. There you make decisions, but society has a voice. So Dr. Paulo has an MA in public health from Federal University of Minas Gerais. Thank you. Now, Dr. Guilherme, please, now you're back to talk with us. He's a prosecutor in the state of São Paulo. Thank you. Now we inverted. Now I'm a student. I was a student. Because after these three amazing people, knowledgeable people, I feel like a student. Now, first I will talk about what I learned with them and connecting with the previous panel, using even Dr. Paulo's analogy. Sincerely, I see that today we have a dragon with many heads. One of its heads is an old one. It's very one. What's the big tobacco? The other one is the big bets, big casinos. It's not new that people want to legalize gambling and destruction of families. Now there is big vapes. Next one might be big cocaine, because big cannabis, or the next will be big cocaine, because in our country has continental sizes, the narco-capitalist strategy, narco-mercantilist strategy, which is not new, which comes from the ancient times of the first navigations. We were forged unfortunately, by the evil of trafficking of people from Africa, and here from Africa, the trading coin was cachaça and tobacco. And now Brazil is the place, is being a cannabis Republic of Brazil, and using the clothing and the vests of technology. So, because VAPE will be precisely used by they will target the most vulnerable ones with the vape. Those who are the most vulnerable in relation to alcohol, to nicotine, to any other substance. And to whom is the vape? Our country needs food. It needs food, true food, that fosters the brain's development of children and adolescents to face the challenges of the 21st century. Let me see if I can use the slides.
So I could tell you that big vape, big cannabis are the two faces of the same rotten coin. It only interests those on the other side. So Dr. Roberto's mentioned the actions, movements in National Congress. A bit of legalese, I'm sorry. It's unconstitutional to try to revoke LBC 855 of the Anvisa law that regulated e-cigarettes, improving the prior one, the prior bill. So since 2019, our country, which is a pioneer in terms of tobacco control of the planet, one of the best policies, went ahead. Dr. Stanton Glantz cites Brazil here, gaining the 6-time championship on health prevention. So we cannot, go against what we have succeeded in. Some more legalese. This bill of Anvisa violates the constitutional instruments, presumed vulnerability of the consumer. How will I be able to put into market something that we know harms health? If the state assumes something like this, it is therefore violating another constitutional principle, which is of that of precaution in public health, prevention in public health, including to the environment. Today we don't have reverse logistics regarding nicotine products. We're going to create this large sea of heavy metals and explosives. Ireland a few days ago. There are there are proof that the girl was passing by near a fire. It's cold there, and then something explodes in the fire. Commercial flights in Europe. In Europe, there are cases of explosions of e-cigarettes, and strange enough, our National Association of Civil Aviation allows the possibility of you flying with electronic dispositives. So, be aware because vape can now fly. So, absolute priority. Integral protection. These are regulated commands. Laws exist to regulate behaviors. Why don't people smoke here? Because there was a movement in society. Society understood that they did not want to inhale smoke in closed spaces. The politicians, regardless of their party, were sensitive to it, and now we have to perfect this. More protection and less experimentalism in something so sacred that is public health. There's another bill that is in connection with with a bill elaborated by Senator Eduardo Girão. This bill is very important because it elevates the other one to a law. And then all this speech that, but Brazil doesn't regulate, these are like such small perverse details, so superficial regarding legal instruments. It's like I'm telling you, everyone is liberated to drive your car like in England on your left side, and we'll try with Serra Negra. Are you for it? This is called regulation. It's to put in law. So these tiny T-Dales, euphemisms, Brazil has to regulate. It's already regulated for a while and successfully. And Big Vape is the electronic door to find psychoactive substances with color, taste, and flavor. And a country is made with billions of free minds and without drugs. Here's what we have as alerts, warnings, and say it's just for adults. But look, we are authorized to say by the convention that cigarettes and other products containing tobacco are prepared in a sophisticated way to create and maintain addiction. So, strawberry flavored e-cigarettes is only on the shelf, not on the funeral. Not at the funeral. So this is something that I took from a bakery in Campinas, and then of course I called sanitary inspection. So you can see the strategy of the nicotine industry. This looks like nursery facility. So Dr. Sandra Marques called my attention to this. She's the coordinator of the state program against tobacco use. It looks like nursery facilities because it's at the height where a child can access. Now imagine this with e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes in the form of a marker pen. You can take it in your backpack, in your pencil case. In Australia, legalized vapes in a certain way. Okay, look what happens. Australia a country of the ODCE sells vapes in toy stores. England, where vape is legalized for adults only, not adolescents. For And here we have an adolescent with a bag of e-cigarettes in it. Vape. 18 and 19-year-old sisters have a lung collapse due to the use of e-cigarettes. Once again, England. Next. Brazil. Young people dies electrocuted by an e-cigarette that was connected to a plug. So it's highly addictive. So this young person, Kawan, died after this electric discharge while he using an electronic nargileh. And this event was this happened last year, I believe, or 2 years ago, I believe. So I cited this in the prior panel. A young person using e-cigarette at night, it exploded in Texas. The family took a while to find his body after 5 hours, and the doctors asked and then wrote on his obituary, explosion due to e-cigarette. Fentanyl in the vapes is already, this is from San Diego, in the same California that is being flooded by organized crime in the row houses. The row houses, houses where you use cannabis, and this is growing. And to reinforce this, Brazil is a land where what you plant will grow. So cannabis is a tropical plant. To produce cannabis in the Northern Hemisphere is so expensive, as expensive as if we produced papoula, or so it's not something we can do. Poppy, sorry, producing poppy. It's as expensive as if Brazil produced poppy. So that is why the prior map, where Brazil is targeted as agri-narco business, and everything is mingled together for these narco-capitalists' interests, and will lead to this because vapes are furtive. The policemen that are here with me, my dear warriors of police, we learn there's another more legalese. Organoleptic characteristics of the substance, the smell of the substance, which makes the dogs smell and find cocaine, cannabis, but a chemical arsenal, the dog will not smell. It's hard for the agent, of public agent. How is it going to make this approach? There's already some limitation posed by the Federal Supreme Court. 40 grams. How am I going to calculate 40,000 milligrams of psychoactive that smells like vanilla? Sorry. So here, samples of e-cigarettes that have some effects similar to amphetamine, and this study was carried out by the University of Santa Catarina jointly with the scientific police. I'm going to try to go back. Next one, please. Is this the next one, Gabriel? Industry of vapes, I believe, in Illinois. What happened here is that this vape factory exploded and killed this guy that was passing by the facilities, because vapes are naturally explosive. It is believed that there was also in this case a type of arsenal, a methane arsenal, and for some reason it is associated, the vape and THC production is associated with other inflammable substances. This guy was passing by, was about 300 meters from this facility and was hit as if he had been hit by a missile, from a missile that came from this factory of e-cigarettes. So we can see the magnitude of the problems that we don't have today. E-cigarettes are not cultured in our country, despite everything that Dr. Paula said with the efforts of the narco media, despite the risks that Dr. Stella said with new generations and the producers of tobacco, which is, it's very important to highlight this. The tobacco producers, many of which are family farmers, are deceived by the industry, narco industry, because then they're able to achieve get cheaper substances in terms of synthetic nicotine. They will start harming also the family farmers, and this is an omission of our government. And this goes way back. Is that family farmers from Santa Catarina, Paraná, Rio Grande do Sul states, they don't teach them to plant good quality food, and they know how to do that. The food that we consume here, corn that we consume, chicken, they usually come from the south region. They work hard, but they are deceived by the nicotine industry, by planting tobacco. There will also be slavery because of cannabis, and organized crime also. We cannot leave it out. Organized crime will have its plantations. So look at the extension of the problems that we will bring upon ourselves. Here is the proof of the crime. Cannabis is part of the future a tobacco giant foresees. Cannabis is part of the future. So the largest company of cigarettes in the UK sees cannabis as part of its future as it tries to sell traditional tobacco. Okay. This is a shirt where you use e-cigarettes. That's the truth. Less people are using tobacco in comparison to 2020. Our Dr. Alexandre Milhaudes from the Center of Support Against Tobacco Use in Rio de Janeiro brought this slides to our group, and before that it were one each three in 2020 throughout the world. Now it's one each 5. So the tobacco industry is coming with other types of facades, everything flavored, with deceiving to allure new consumers. And what is the vape for? Well, it's industrial, it's positive. R.D. Reynolds, an industrial person, a businessman of the tobacco industry, Arnie Judgenamal, says, "We will leave people who want to smoke have the right to smoke. Youth people, black people." Jean-Baptiste Debré, when he came to Brazil in the 1800s, photographed mentally and reproduced this painting that is a tobacco house, black people chained in nicotine slavery. Dr. Roberto Gil of INCRA uses this term precisely. We have a population that will be enslaved again. So let's institute national policy of integral health for the black population, and this does not include incentivizing the use of tobacco use, alcohol, any other drug. You know that speech, oh, there is repression to black culture because cannabis is associated to blackness. This is narco-capitalist speech that does not see that when cannabis was forbidden, before we forbidden opioids. So these forbidding activities, they are scientifically proved. No one questions the association of cannabis with schizophrenia. So we're going to create schizophrenia tutti frutti flavored schizophrenia by using vape. Okay, black health, uh, healthy Black Lives Matter. Okay, now in the Senate, it's not vapor of water. It causes environmental damages, Professor Stella. So the discharge of vape is 5 million millimeters per week. And in Brazil, where we don't even have reverse logistic, not even culture or urban inspection and supervision in this topic, then this will, foster a type of thing and of the consumption of heavy metals and leads to lung cancer, for example. This is Rio. As you can see, the mission of society now. Each one of us can do that with your mayors and your councilmen who are assuming by 2025 municipal laws to create more spaces free of tobacco. Over 500,000 towns and cities, so we have lots of work to do. We'll be able to make this great barrier of public health because we will say no and no to these type of substances and expand healthy spaces. Next one, Campinas, Taquaralzinho neighborhood. Campinas has over 1 million inhabitants, but only now there is a specific leisure space that is smoke-free. As you can read, it is forbidden to smoke and it's allowed to play and have fun. Parents, caretakers, use your hands to hug, to play, and not to monitor your son remotely without knowing any type of substance he's using. Next one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Paulo is also here. So Paulo could not be here. He had to go to another place, but you can conclude and then I will deliver their certificates. I don't know how much time we have. I don't know how much time we have left. We calculate around 2 hours, but I'd like to clarify something about how are the bills in process now in the federal Senate regarding e-cigarettes. I'm just sad that we are not going to open the space for you to make the questions, which would be extremely important. Because as I said, transmitting the message, we don't know if we received the best way possible. But because these were classes that were very well given, I believe that since everyone is an activist in this matter, you understood it very well and took with you the main message, which is we need to fight with all the weapons we have against the legalization of the advertisement, of the sale, of the import of e-cigarettes in Brazil.
They spoke here about the amount of products that are put and how they develop there, and now they're adding THC in e-cigarettes. So in addition to substances such as nicotine, which is extremely addictive, they're adding to it THC and the industry wants to create legions of cigarette consumers so that it can survive. It's a multi-billionaire industry. It's not multi-millionaire, it's billionaire, because they are lobbying inside the Congress, National Congress. They've been working strongly, doing heavy lobby, and even hiring former senators, people who have influence to be and to talk to people and influence and use their political influence in their favor. So unfortunately, the industry needs to use evil strategies to be able to convince legislators to vote in their favor. Because if you go to science, if you go to scientific academic studies, they have no arguments. So they have to use deceitful strategies. But I'm sure our National Congress will say no to that evil, as it said, will say no to the evil of marijuana and the evil of gambling, which has been also been worrying our society. I'd like to welcome the representatives of the military police, and I know you are on the streets and you help society avoid access to these drugs. Your work is very important. If it weren't for you, um, you remove the police and you will see a higher amount of consumption and of young people submitting themselves to this type of addiction. Congratulations for your work. And I congratulate the São Paulo police and the Brazil police here represented by you. Now, very quickly, because we have to end the panel, what's happening today in the Federal Senate? There's a bill, Dr. Paulo Correia spoke about it, by Senator Soraya Tronic, which wants to legalize e-cigarettes in Brazil. They say there's no regulation, but yes, there is a regulation from 2024 by Anvisa, which is our regulating agency. And they say, I couldn't see during the entire process that e-cigarettes are good for people or work as damage reduction. So I maintain my prohibition. And that's what Anvisa said. During the pandemic, everybody wanted to hear science, but now no one wants to hear science. The same legislators who used to say at that time, science is fundamental. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about their contradiction. The same people who used to say, let's listen to science, today they're not listening to science, and many of them want to vote in favor of e-cigarettes. So it's something that's worrisome, and we must be concerned about that because it's unacceptable. So this project, 5008, from 2023 by Senator Soraya Tronic, and the rapporteur is Senator Eduardo Gomes, is the Economic Issues Commission of the Senate. Why? Because it involves the issue of tax collection. So there's the economic aspect that it must be analyzed because it's a relationship between the bill and the commission. So if we think about tax collection, it must be unanimously denied because it will be nearly 20 billion in collection versus 153 in expenditure. So if that's the reason, it must be denied. So this project must not be approved. But as amazing as it seems, the rapporteur, Senator Eduardo Gomes, he voted in favor of the bill. So in the Commission of Economic Matters, which must be concerned with our country's finance, it was favored. So there is a difference of 133 billion reais between collection and expenditure. So this is the reality, and I can't understand. So that's an issue that is defined at the rapporteur's level, but it has not been voted yet. So the bill has not been voted yet. We have been taking experts there. Dr. Stella, Dr. Paulo, Dr. Guilherme have been there, and other experts are helping us to, together with civil society, therapeutic communities, anti-drug organizations. They have been going knocking on the doors of legislators' offices and taking material to show how e-cigarettes are harmful at the public health level, because generations will be harmed by that. So senators, take a look at this reality. Put your mind at place. So be reasonable and vote against it. So our expectation is to vote against that bill in the commission, so that it will not go to other commissions. What would be the other commissions? Surveillance and Control Commission and Social Matters Commission. Why? Because it involves directly the social costs of these e-cigarettes. So there's a project of Eduardo Girão for 35 from 2023 as well that transforms Anvisa's regulation into a law. Anvisa today is an administrative agency. According to Eduardo Girão's bill, we get everything that Anvisa has regulated and they become law. Why? Because actually, when you make that a law, you have a larger ability to turn that into more effective actions. Of course, Anvisa has its jurisdiction, and it said no. But how are you going to make that become effective actions? Of course, we could do that, but it would have much less strength. So when we transform that in law, we give more strength to it. So that's the goal. Not approve the Soraya Tronique's bill, and while approving the bill proposed by Eduardo Girão, which wants to transform Anvisa's resolutions, improve them, and turn them into law. So that's the scenario we are in today inside the Federal Senate. And how the civil society can help. It can help a lot. I always say that one thing that the politicians are afraid and legislators are afraid, many of them, is of not being reelected. They say that they get there the first day, and instead of thinking about their bills they're going to propose, they automatically think about how they're going to come back and in the next come back to office in the next elections. So, but how can you act as an organized civil society, calling these offices, calling senators' office, sending emails to those senators' offices? Of course, all these bills, and I'm talking here as an advisor. I was talking before. I was talking as the national coordinator of the anti-drugs movement in Brazil, but now I'm talking as a legal and parliamentary assistant. All bills impact some portion of the population, but when you have a bill that we see that people are mobilized, a lot of emails, a lot of calls, people going to these offices and delivering material, we automatically say this will impact the population most severely, either society, public coffers, public health. So, and then we give an extra attention. So I'd like to ask you to do that. And I take this opportunity to thank you for being here. So, and people who are online as well, and I'm sure many people are watching us online, and this panel will be recorded. So I ask you to get in touch with the Parliament's offices, the politician's office, but we don't have the phone. Go online. It's not difficult. Just type Federal Senate. Go to the website of the Federal Senate. You can see there both the emails of each office, of each politician, and the phone numbers. And then you just go after them and insist. Please insist. Because if you are able to stop that law, that bill in this commission, we'll be okay. And now we have to, I'm going to talk about the Anvisa resolution. 45% of the cigarettes consumed here are smuggled. So of course, if you regulate, you're not avoid smuggling from existing to exist. It will continue to exist. One thing, more thing. I informed myself only to conclude. Which are the routes of e-cigarettes? How do they come to Brazil? They have two routes. One, the triple frontier, and it's coming a lot through Paraná state. Rio Grande do Sul is one as well, and the federal road police are seizing many smuggled cigarettes. But take a look at how they are. So they come through the Guianas, and then they distribute through boats, fishing boats, which stop in Rio Grande do Norte, Fortaleza. They dock in Rio Grande do Norte, Fortaleza, Recife, and then they distribute these e-cigarettes throughout the country. Of course, they also come in those large containers in the large parts of Brazil. But to make things more discreet, the smugglers are doing these things. So this regulation will not solve the smuggling issue. And it will increase consumption amongst young people. I'm sorry, I'd like to open for questions. I also had questions to our speakers, but the channel is open here of the event, so you can send your questions and they'll definitely deliver your questions to the speakers. Thank you, Dr. Guilherme. Brilliant as well, a poet, as we were saying. Dr. Paulo, thank you for your knowledge. Dr. Stella, congratulations once more for everything. Thank you very much for being here. Let's take this message. Hashtag no to e-cigarettes. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.